I'm Claire O'Neill, and I'm with EwA. I'm going to, just to situate a little bit, I'm going to tell you for less than a minute who we are and why we're doing this webinar here. I need to be on the right window. Here we are. Everybody can see my screen, by the way, with the banner? Okay, excellent. I'm with EwA, which stands for Earthwise Aware, or EwA for short, and we are focused on biodiversity. And in terms of protecting biodiversity, that's really our mission. And the way we do it is by bringing biodiversity knowledge and science, ecological ethics, and environmental leadership to the core, to the heart of organizations and communities, and in the daily lives of people, right? So some of us know us through our guides on etiquette. We developed ecological guides on etiquette around habitat, species, and our many human activities. Some know us because with our nature lessons plan that we have, but most of us know us through our co-creative citizen science. We do citizen science that is really focused on habitats and biodiversity, therefore. And one of our tools, one of the tools that we use to document and to record information, right, observation, is iNaturalist, and that's why I'm here today, giving you some tips and all the little secrets about how to be efficient with iNaturalist and how to really step up the game in a sense in terms of having good observation sets and observation set that may be really relevant to science. So that's the deal. The rough plan for this webinar, which is going to be part a little bit presentation and part live demo, is I'm going to give you a little debriefing on CNC, what is a City Nature Challenge, and iNat how-to. We're going to talk briefly about nature documentation ethics. Then I'm going to go and step into nature documentation tips and give you some resources so that you can really have nice observation sets that you can do with iNaturalist. And then we'll go in a deep dive, meaning really going into the application of iNaturalist, the desktop version, actually, a little bit on the phone, but mostly on the desktop version. And I'll show you some tricks about how to really bulk load observation, some of the different also little criteria or characteristic of the iNaturalist desktop app version. So let's start with a little bit debriefing of what is City Nature Challenge. And rather than having me speaking about it, they did a very nice little film, something that is less than 1 minute and 40 seconds. And I'm going to play it for you. So let's go. And hopefully you're going to hear the sound. If you don't, please, Amy, tell me.
I'm not currently hearing any sound.
It's coming. How about now?
There we go.
Welcome to the 2020 City Nature Challenge. Our focus as we celebrate Earth Day's 50th anniversary with the world community. Now more than ever, we need to study nature in cities around the globe. We can't fully protect nature on this planet without studying what is living in cities. Using cameras and smartphones, tens of thousands of people will observe wildlife in their own cities from April 24th through April 27th, contributing to an international database of urban wildlife that will be used by scientists and naturalists to help understand nature in our cities and work to make them a better place for humans and wildlife. Now, it's your chance to get involved. Just imagine how many observations we can all make together. Go to citynaturechallenge.org, then take pictures of wildlife and upload them to our global database using iNaturalist or your city's preferred platform. Watch as experts all over the world help to identify your observations. Join the 2020 City Nature Challenge or follow along and see how we can work together to change the world.
Voila. I thought it was a nice little introduction. So rather than, repeating that, why not just use their little video? It's an exciting little video there. So here we are. again, the City Nature Challenge is going to be happening this coming week. And it's starting this Friday, April 24th, in terms of taking the observation, recording information with our phone or with our camera, and then uploading later from the 24th to the 27th. And then there is a second period from the 28th to May 3rd, which is about the identification by the community, the entire iNat community of these observations. So I've been doing that for the past 3 years. I'm very excited about that. I'm always excited about, this little moment there. So this being said, because of COVID-19 or the coronavirus, things change a little bit. So it has been, this challenge has been happening for the past 5 years. That's going to be the 5th year, if I'm correct. And up to now, that was kind of a friendly competition. Of course, this year, things are changing because of what's happening worldwide. So iNaturalist is not necessarily encouraging the people to go and travel to places. So it's going to be really, I like how EwA said it last time during a Q&A, it's going to be a hyper-local observation type of period, right? So people are invited to really observe in their backyard, in their street, rather than traveling. Now, when they are, in open spaces, then when we are out there, we should definitely remember and apply, this kind of physical distancing. I don't like to call it social distancing. I prefer physical distancing, but really to keep our distance is extremely important. Personally, I go above 6 feet. 6 feet is here in America. In Europe, it's a little bit more a bigger distance that we try to apply. I think I go for, an extra buffer. So let's keep that in mind. So this year, instead of being a challenge, as I said, it's going to be hyperlocal observation. And so they rebranded it in a sense, calling it a celebration of nature. And I like really this kind of branding. It's truly a celebration of nature. And this is something that right now we need, right? So that's a great opportunity for us to really step out in our backyard, start observing and start celebrating what we have in our immediate environment. So what is iNaturalist? The platform itself. We have been using it for the past 3 years, actually. And it's really open science at work. And this is something that me, as an Earthwise Aware person, really focused on citizen science and data. I'm a data person originally. I'm really a strong advocate of open science and global data. And iNaturalist offer that. That's really a great tool, a great platform for that. So how does it work in a nutshell? Super easy. You have your phone, so if you are out there, you take a picture, you record your observation by uploading it, and by uploading it to this platform, therefore, you're sharing in the global community, and then crowdsourcing come into the picture, discussion happen, they're going to identify, clarify your observation, refute your observation in terms of what it is, but from there, the identification of these species will happen, might happen, and the discussion is really a big part of this process. So it's really a beautiful little tool for open science this way. So how to iNat? Again, in a nutshell, so that's really from their tutorial, their getting started tutorial. So you're going to create an account on the iNaturalist, telling who you are, right? And then when you take your picture, what is important is where you see it. So this means that there are 2 things that are coming actually into the picture there, which is where you see it and when you see it. So usually there, what you use is simply, if you use your phone, make sure you have your GPS location on, because then you're going to have the metadata about the where and the when there, right? When you upload, so if you take a picture so that you have a visual, observation, or take the sound. iNaturalist also works with recording sound, right? And you'll see that in the little live demo that I'm going to do a little bit later. I have a sound, and you'll understand why I have a sound, because I have a terrible picture of what I was trying to shoot at. I have seen some people using iNaturalist more like a list, kind of a life list, a little bit like eBird. That doesn't work really that way. And you'll understand why. It's because observations that are recorded or, recorded and registered without any sound or any visual, then will never be able to become what's called a research grade. It will never be able to be validated by the community, right? So having really a visual support or sound support is going to be important there. So how does it work? So here, this is a bee, a tricolored bumblebee. I was actually in New Hampshire, I think it was last year. Yeah, that was in September. You see that actually I took a full set of this bee. We might go through it a little bit later. So I uploaded this observation, right? Then you could see that, of course, because of the metadata, you know when it was observed and exactly where it was observed. Right? And actually, this observation got a research grade, you know, fairly quickly after I uploaded it. So that's the observation, uploading it through your phone or through your desktop application. And then the identification process itself is when the community, because it's a crowdsourced, you know, identification process, when the community comes into the picture, look at your observation and validate it or not. So in this case, so I had this person, Rusty Bee, validating that it was indeed a tricolored bumblebee. And then what happened here is that we reached the 2/3, you know, validation of that observation, and that was enough in this case to give it, you know, a quality assessment of research grade. Research grade means that this data is going actually to be uploaded to specific other type of database. One of these is the Global Biodiversity Inventory Facility, GBIF. And that database is really a very cool database because this is a database that is really used by scientists, and scientists look at this set of information. There is actually another database that is used or to which the observations are going to be uploaded, and this is the Encyclopedia of Life. EwA has a very nice little presentation that she does in her Q&A. There is another one coming on Monday where she really gives this kind of, you know, information under iNaturalist. So if you want to join on Monday, please do so. So this is a research grade quality. All right. Before we really dig into the deep dive, I want to talk very shortly about, you know, documentation ethics. So nature documentation is you're out there, you are in nature or even in your backyard, and you are looking at something and you're going to take that picture, right? So for us at EwA, because we're also an ethics organization, being really out there and minimizing our disruption, you know, seeking zero impact or letting, you know, nature be is extremely important, right? So what it really means is that at all time we try to keep our distance. Of course, we remain quiet, and this is important for many species, you know, such as birds, for example, mammals, etc. And we really pay extra attention to not divert their activity, right? Here is a little snippet. I'm a birder, by the way. You're going to see that in the live demo. You're going to see a lot of birds, right? So, and as a birder, I've seen sometimes some birders that were not that ethical, where they're cramped, you know, all together around the nest, taking a picture. And this is, you know, extremely stressful for that wildlife. Actually, I just posted yesterday on Twitter something about monarch and the stress that caterpillars have when we handle them, you know, in that phase, early, you know, in the early stage of their life. So trying to minimize disruption, you know, handling and all this kind of thing is something that we think is important, right? So to spell it out, this means no interrupting or disturbing, no interfering or rescuing, no chasing, no feeding or baiting. Baiting has been a big problem, for instance, with owls, where you have entire Facebook groups who prohibit, you know, having the posting of owl picture just to avoid this kind of things where, you know, people bait owls in order to get this fantastic shot. So baiting is not an option. You know, no mobbing, crowding, cornering, surrounding, encroaching, separating, cutting off. It happened to me once and it was not intentional, right? Where I was very close to a mother bear and her cubs. I was in Canada. And so it was quite, I mean, I was lucky because they were, I didn't really completely cut them off, but I was far too close, and that was because I was not paying attention to my surrounding. I was in the wild over there. And watching where we step is very important, and certainly when we look at plants as well. We have a tendency, you know, sometimes to see a plant and we go to it, you know, along the way there are a ton of other little things happening and we don't necessarily pay attention. So having that in mind when we document nature knowing really where we are, getting our bearings right is something that is important, right? So there is something to be said as well. So I spend a lot of time in the wild. So white light at night is also a disruption. So usually me, when I'm out there, except when I do a moth night, I use red light in order to minimize disruptions. So here are some resources if you wanted to go further in understanding what are good ethics approach and validated as well by conservationists and scientists. So this is my little thing about ethics. And now let's look now about how to do good quality documentation. So one of the things that you will do when you are out there in your backyard or in the forest, in the fells, is trying to have, and it's not easy, right? But trying to have actually several angles often for any species that you're going to take a documentation of. So here I'm just showing you one. So this is a yellow jacket, common aerial yellow jacket. And here to spell it out, so this one is mine. I was trying to get, I was very patient. I have a good little camera that was not done with my phone, although people who know me knows that we can do wonders with phones as well, and little macro lens that you can attach to your phone. So I do the same thing now with my phone as well. And so here I was trying to really get at the side and the underside of this yellow jacket, the dorsal, right? Because this little pattern that you see here might be distinctive keys when comes the identification process, right? And one thing that took me a while with this specific yellow jacket, I love wasp, is to get the face, the front face of this wasp here. So I was successful in getting, the full facial markings there of this wasp. So this kind of apply to everything. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to click on that. I forgot to, did I upload it? Let me see. No, I didn't, but I'm going to click on that so that you see a little bit. There are very good tips from our groups of citizen scientists. We created a document here where we spelled out a little bit different, tips depending on the species groups there. So let's go there. So you have, the identifiable photos, making sure that you have things in focus, of course. And here we have little tips depending on the group, of species that you are looking at. So I'm going maybe to look at the non-woody plants, because right now it's a time for ephemerals. We see them a lot. We operate in the fells and we see a lot of them in the fells. So I'm going to show you an example of a beautiful little flower, and I think that it is this one, to show you what to shoot for when you're looking at a flower, right, for example. So this is the round-lobed hepatica, right? Hepatica americana. And here what I was trying to do is really to have actually the full setting. What was interesting was to see really the hair, right, on the petals there of these flowers. The inside of the flower, so I did a full set there, right, with the answers, right? And then the leaves are very important, certainly for this one, because the hepatica, there is another one, which is a sharp-lobed hepatica. So if you do not have the leaf in, the leaf in, then this species might stay unidentified to the species level, just to the genus level. And then here I got a younger one. I could have done something better by really trying to focus at this intersection between, the flower itself and the stem there, which I didn't do. So I don't necessarily want to go through all of that, because I'll send you, this document so that you can dig in. But this applies really for everything. So if you look at a tree, for example, for a tree, what you would want to do is to have the full shape of the tree, and then going closer to the tree, go to the bark, then look at the branching of the branches themselves, right? When you have branches that comes with leaf at the end. So there is several kind of branching which are opposite, alternate, or whorled. So you want to capture that. If the tree has bud at that time, shoot for the bud, try to have the bud. If it has flowers, go for the flower, because it's a strong identification key. Although some flowers can be very, similar depending on a group of species. So that's why all the rest coming into the picture is also very important. If you go for fungi, just in a nutshell, fungi, you want to have the top. If it has a stem, right, this kind of stem, you want to have that stem because it might have a corolla. you want to have also in general for all of them the habitat, because the habitat tells you a lot about what the species is. So I might just go and look at one of the fungi. Which one? Let's see, this one, for instance. Coming, this is Dan. So Dan got, you know, the side, and you can see the corolla as well as really this part of the mushroom that is an important indicator as well. Then he has a full top there, and he captured the gill. So you know now that it is a gilled mushroom. So without going too much into all the details, one thing though, for the mammals, it's a little bit hard because, you know, you're going to have them from afar. So usually in our team, we have also a camera to be able to capture, you know, this far away species. Same thing with birds. You know, I haven't succeeded really to having a good picture of a bird with my phone. So that's why I also use a camera, right? Amphibian and reptiles, same thing. You know, try to avoid handling them in general. Personally, I like to take them in their own habitat with minimizing disruption. So that's, in a nutshell, right, giving you some resource about, you know, what to do to have a full set. And you're going to see in the live session what I mean by that and grouping them. All right. Now, I'm not going to approach that. Next week, we have 3 sessions. So that's for next week, but I want to mention that if you were interested in. To the community that live around the fells, we're going to have a session just for the fells to explain to people and show to people what they might expect at this time of the year. Because coming prepared somehow, when you go out there to take observation, helps a lot. If you know what to look for somehow, right, it's going to really increase, you know, the number of observation that you're going to be able to make. So we're doing a session for the fells. We operate a lot in the fells. So the fells community around the fells who can walk to the fells, we're going to give that session. Then we have another, these are wonderful guides that our citizen scientists have done specifically for the fells. Then we have Fresh Pond. We also operate a Fresh Pond. We have some of our studies happening at Fresh Pond. So we'll do a session to prepare the people in the Fresh Pond community to know what to expect at this time of the year in this habitat there. And then we have another one. I'm from Somerville, so I'm very engaged with my city. And so I want to prepare my community to tell them, to show them what they can expect to see at this time of the year in the city, in our parks. Right? So that's that. All right. Maybe I can have a little stop to check with people if there are some questions about what we've seen so far. No questions? We're good?
Claire, I have one question, Lisa. When you're loading, you know, I'm involved with your group, EwA, and when I load onto iNaturalist, sometimes it will say, like, where do you want to load it? Do I load it onto EwA, or is this sort of like a generic place to load it? How is that identified?
So you don't need, with us, for instance, or for the City Nature Challenge, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
The City Nature Challenge in the Boston area
Yeah.
is going to actually not do anything by members and just pull the data of everybody who is taking a picture,
Yeah.
upload it on iNaturalist. If it is within the border, right, of where the City Nature Challenge for the Greater Boston area is happening, it's going to get into that project. For EwA, same thing, Liza, because you are with us, Lisa, so you are one of our members, because we are member restricted in terms of our projects. So because I have your profile, we have your profile, your data is going to be pulled to the EwA project. So you don't have to worry about that at all. So nobody has to worry about that right now, right? Does it make sense?
Can you show at some point later, like if you're loading, just go through the process of showing how to load?
Yes, definitely. I'm going to do
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. All right. Something else? No? Okay. All right. So I'm going to continue. So EwA has actually a nice set of slides about an iPhone. how to upload on iPhone. Phone to phone is slightly different. I've noticed that because sometimes I get lost, you know, when we have people in our group and they show me an iPhone, I'm like, okay, what is equivalent to upload, to put the, you know, obscure the location, etc. So this one is about an Android. This is my Android phone. And this is this beautiful flower that I love, right? Which is the round leaf hepatica. Actually, it's not, I don't think it's my picture. I think it's a picture of one of our citizen scientists. So let me check where we were. I feel like that. 1 second. I think that I'm one slide. Here we are. So this is when I arrive on my phone, right? So I'm opening my iNat, right? And here for the Android phone, I have a plus. For the iPhone, I forgot what it is. It's but there is a green button. It's easy to find there. So I'm going to do a plus, and then there's several possibilities there. And we discussed roughly that this past Wednesday with EwA and the group that was at the Q&A session that we had. So either you can take the picture directly, you know, from the iNaturalist app on your phone, or this is something that I do. I take picture with my camera on my phone when I use my phone. And then I decide to choose image, and I go to my gallery of pictures and I pick the one that constitutes a set, right? It's really up to your preference. The reason why I do that the other way, which is to take picture with my camera and then, you know, choose the image, is because I like to edit my pictures, right? The reason why I do that, because sometimes when you take your picture with your phone, with your lens, you know, micro lens, etc., sometimes I want to crop more specifically on what I'm looking. The picture is a little too far. Then sometimes I want to edit a little bit to heighten the contrast so that the keys, the features of the species I'm trying to take a picture of, right, or documenting, gets, you know, better in focus and this kind of thing. So that's my personal choice. So you take the picture, so you click on this button, and then what will happen is here you are. So you're looking at your flower, and then you take the picture. So this is not the same one, right? This is mine here. So once I upload that, so this is just one single picture. Once I upload that, then you're going to have a little, actually there is one screen missing where you can see exactly the same text box, and the text box is going to show you that it's unknown, you know, show me a suggestion. So if you click there, there's going to be a species search happening, right? And you're going to see that, you know, iNaturalist is really fantastic in terms of how all the progress that they have made in the past few years in refining, you know, their suggestion. So it definitely found that, so that it was an hepatica, which is true. And actually it was even able to tell me, right, just from that picture here, that it was probably a round-lobed hepatica. So it doesn't tell you what it is, it only tells you what it could be. So just remember that, right? So in this case, of course, because I know the round-leaf hepatica, a round-lobed hepatica, this is what I picked, right? So here, hepatica, sorry, I forgot to click on that, round-lobed hepatica. So here, one thing to say is, if you do not know, right, there is several venues there. First, do not feel intimidated if you do not know. I mean, there is something like 391, you know, 1,000 species of vascular plants in the world. So of course, we are doomed to not know everything for sure. So go to the level where you are comfortable. So meaning that you can go to the hepatica and say, okay, I'm going to go for the hepatica. But if you do not know, and if you are really uncertain about that, you can say, all right, I know it's a flowering plant. So I think it's, there is a category called flowering plants in iNat. So you can go higher in the taxonomy. I usually do not, how do you say that, recommend that people leave it at unknown. And there is a reason for that. Remember that it's a crowdsourcing community, meaning that the identification process is crowdsourced. It goes out in the world and people are looking at all the observation. If you put an unknown or you leave it at unknown, what's going to happen is most likely nobody's going to look at it. And the reason for that is because people have interest. You know, they have special interest, the kind of special interest group by species or by group and genus, etc. So they're going to go and say, all right, I'm going to, the guy who is really into the hepatica world is going to look at that and he's going to tell you really what kind of hepatica it is. There are some people who are much larger in terms of the taxonomy. You know, they go higher in the taxonomy and they say, okay, they look at all flowering plants, right? So you're going to have a much higher chance of having your observation being identified, right? If you do not leave it unknown, essentially. All right, let me see what, okay. So here I selected the round-lobed hepatica because I know that plant's there. And I want to mention that, again, often what is important is to have a set of observation. And here, if you were taking a picture, then you can click this little added, you are in the observation itself, right? And you can click this added picture. And by the way, you do not need to do it in this order, right? You could have had first, your set, right? And then after that say, okay, what is it, right? And to go back to that. So here you might have had, 3 pictures and do your species search. And actually that's often what I do. And there is a reason for that, is because I'm using iNat and the algorithm to try to direct, the identification or to try to find the species. So often, if I go back there, you see that the first, I'm picking the first. I'm always picking the first in a way where I'm trying to find that picture that has the most keys to facilitate the identification. But sometimes what I do when I'm not really saying, okay, this is iffy, I don't agree with the suggestions, I'm going to try to find. So I flip the first to see what iNaturalist tells me, because it's going to give you a different answer depending on the first picture, right? And then I proceed, by elimination, and I say, okay, I think it's really in this genus. I'm comfortable with that, and I'm going to go with this genus or this family of species, right? You'll see that more in the live demo. All right, and then once it's done, to finish the upload on the Android, I'm going to click this check mark. I think that actually the iPhone is more intuitive than just this little check mark there. While I'm here, by the way, so you see here that the location is here, right? The location visibility is open. If you were to click there, and if you wanted, which we did actually for all the round-lobed hepatica in the fells, our little group decided to go and to hide it. If it was an endangered species, iNat would by default obscure the location, right? Certainly from the public standpoint, right? If it's not an endangered species, and I don't think that the round-lobed hepatica is, it would leave it there. So, but for this one, we decided with our team to go and to obscure it, to make it private. I think it's private or obscured, I forgot. We'll double check when we go live. But anyway, we removed, the public access to that. Our reason for us is because there's not many patches of round-lobed hepatica in the fells, and this one is under stress. So we don't want to encourage people to go there, right? And to crowd this little patch. A little bit unfair in a sense, but we're really trying to protect this little patch. Okay. Another thing here, by the way, so Liza, you don't need, in your case, because you're an EwA person, to add it to the project. It's going to be pulled automatically. So there you don't need to do anything, right? There are some old form of project on iNat, which are, little by little are being, discarded in a sense, or they are dying off, where, actually that's quite true what I'm saying, but where you would add to a project specifically. So this project will not pull the data automatically, but really rely on the people to add their observation. We had one in the past, but it adds, a little bit of burden on the part of the people who do the observation in the group, and we decided to facilitate for our group, to restrict to our group, and to pull the data automatically. So here, this little thing here is an important one. If you know that what you are observing is something that is captive or has been cultivated, in your area, so you should click that. It's going to make it a casual sighting. Right, this is a category that iNat does. There is something to be said about that, because sometimes you have some plant that spread. Is it cultivated? Did it escape? So there is a fuzzy line there. I'm actually curious to have an answer, and I want to talk to the iNat folk at some point, which is, are they cultivated, or did they escape and then therefore they are not cultivated anymore in a sense? So that's something. Question so far? Let me see. Yes. Question about just the app. So that's the phone app there. No, I don't think so. So, all right, I'm going to continue then. So the next thing here is going to be to do an iNat deep dive, kind of a speed edition. So the goal here is really to show you the app on the desktop, so the web browser version there. We've seen this too. You know, we browse that very quickly, making identifiable observation, meaning working with sets of pictures. Species specific recommendation, which is, you know, depending on what you are looking, a mushroom, you want to have the corolla, if it's this kind of mushroom versus bracket fungi. If you have an insect trying to have, you know, facial marking of the face, you know, the dorsal, etc., this kind of things, you have the resource now. So this is, I'm going to definitely tackle that one, the bulk load in a nutshell, because there's so much that can be said that we can do from there and give you some tips there. I want to mention at some point, I don't want to forget that, you know, observer's license, you know, and what they enable or not in terms of this observation at the science level, right? I'll talk briefly about the geotagging options solely when, because it has been a question for people. I mean, there is an issue of privacy, by the way, which is, you know, I don't want necessarily, because I'm at home, to have people knowing where I live. So what do you do in that case? For me, it doesn't matter, but for a lot of people, it matters, which, so there is things that you can do there as well. Yeah, I'm looking at what we have on our list. All right. So I'm going to start with the bulk load. So here, so let me close a few things without messing up what I prepared. Okay. Okay, so this is actually not my first page. This is a page on EwA. We have several, you know, we have an umbrella project with several collection projects underneath. My, when I usually go to iNaturalist as Claire, my nickname is Achille, by the way, on iNaturalist, this is what I see. So I did some upload. I was in Florida a few weeks back, actually in February with Dan. And so we really went overboard in terms of recording stuff over there. So I did, I'm catching up with all the observation that I had at this time. So now this is here, this is our little sample. And you're going to say, really, do we need to go through all that? Actually, I want to show you how fast it, you know, it can be by doing bulk load, right? So here, what I would do, I would simply upload all that. So I would select all that, right? Actually, let me go there first. I would click upload. So here for us, it's there, right? And there, either you can pick, you know, choose the file, you know, from your folders. Me, usually what I do is I simply do, I don't know, I forgot, you know, and I drag and drop. I'm not going to do that because I already prepared it, right? But I simply drop it there, okay? I'm not going to do that. Why? Because it takes a little bit of time. There is 59 pictures there. So I already did the upload so that we are ready. They're all there, right? And I ordered them a little bit so that we have, because I'm using usually in the field 2 or 3 cameras. So sometimes I have, you know, disconnect between the group of pictures. So I ordered them so that they are coming nicely together. So this is really a cool tool, very cool tool to be able to do a bulk load that way. Here, I probably have 20 observation total. I have 59 observation in terms of all the picture that I took, but at the end, they will be simply something like 20 or 29 observation. So here, when I say, you know, to take pictures of all the angles of an animal, let's say, sometimes it's hard. So this is a brown anole. This guy, I got him, you know, from close and from far, and that's it. I mean, there was no way that I could come closer to him because he would probably go away. So, but look what I'm doing here. So I have this timestamp, perfect. I'm going to simply, I'm always picking my first picture in a way where it facilitates the identification by the crowd, right, the community. So here I'm going to go with the close-up there. And here I'm just, boom, done. So this guy, that constitutes, we have one set with 2 observations there, right? All right, I'm looking at the second one. You know that I'm a birder, red shoulder hawk here. Beautiful, beautiful little one. And I'm looking and I'm going to say, okay, which one? Well, they're kind of all identifiable at this space. So I'm going to go for aestheticism here, which is which one of those pics is really one that is really beautiful, you know, has a front picture of this set. I like this one personally. I usually prefer a landscape versus a portrait, just because iNat would cut it in the thumbnail, right? So this is a little trick there. So I'm going to go with this one. That's going to be my first pick. And I'm going to simply, you know, pull them in. Right. All right. I'm indulging with the full set there. Sometimes I go with, of course, you know, far less, but I want to have the record of this one because it's also a nice, you know, it's a nice observation period. So here I have it. So, by the way, I'm going to look at what iNat is proposing here, right? So it's loading the suggestion and it says it's an anomaly, right? It's actually recommending a brown anomaly. Me, I do believe it's a brown anomaly, so I'm going to go with the brown anomaly. This is what I picked there. This one is a red-shouldered hawk. So let's see what iNat does. It finds that indeed it's a, you know, from the genus Buteo, and then it found, you know, that it was a red-shouldered hawk there. I'm going to go for that. So here I wanted to have this one. I'm going to say, okay, and another anomaly, but because look at what happened. And that's something that happens with your phone, by the way, as well, or with your camera. My camera didn't pick the location, right? So I noticed that, and I'm like, okay, where was I? Because I have a full set. So this, I'm clicking on where it would be. So here it's trying to put it to somewhere in the vicinity. I was actually not at all there. So this is a little trick there, which is when you take sets of observation, certainly if you are in the wild like me, so this is not totally the wild, but I go to Mongolia, I go to the Amazon, so there I absolutely do not have, by the way, locations there. So I have to use my GPS. I have a GPS device there. But usually when I do this kind of more relaxed trip, so I try to take regularly picture and I check that pictures, you know, on my phone has a location by sets. So I happen to know where I was at 9:16 that morning with Dan, and I'm going to, I have it somewhere, 1 second. I think I put it here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Click too quickly. I realized yesterday that I was missing that, and so I did a little bit of digging to see where was I, and I found it. So I was there, and I'm going to talk about accuracy, by the way. So this is where I was. We were having our breakfast before leaving. I was there, and I know where I was there because there was a turkey vulture that I took a picture of with another camera. So here, so fine, this is a location. Sometimes you might not know, right? So if you do not know, you have a general idea. So what you want to do is you want to work with the accuracy as well there. Let's say that, so I knew that I was really definitely there, and my accuracy, I'm going to set it up, you know, shorter because I was in this range there, right? So I went at 22. When you upload from your camera, your phone, by the way, I don't think that accuracy is set. So it's a blank field there. If you have too large accuracy, you might have issues, by the way, if you are in boundaries, within boundaries. If the accuracy is very large, it might not count the observation in the specific geolocation that you are trying to target. That has happened with one of our projects at Fresh Pond, where I had one of my citizen scientists saying, I'm not understanding, but my data, my observation is not pulled in the project. The project has a physical boundary, you know, a map, right? And it's because the accuracy was too big, so it didn't put it here, right? So having, you know, kind of a good accuracy level is certainly recommended when you want to do things that are more about science. So here, this set is very interesting. I did something there. I couldn't. Do you have an idea of what I'm shooting there, by the way? Any guess? I don't know if people are talking.
There's a bird in a nest.
There's a bird in a nest. It's actually a very big nest. But if you just have that, there is no way the thing is ever going to be, you know, identified. I don't think so. Plus, I was roughly, I don't know, I was at probably 70 meters, right? So that's really from afar, right? So I have few shots you might see. So actually, let's go back. The bird is here. It's a big bird. Then you see it a little bit more there, but you know, there's no way you can have a firm identification. So I decided when I was over there, I said, okay, I have to take a record of what's going on there. And maybe, I don't know if you're going to hear that. Do you hear a little bit? There's a little bit of white noise there. Okay. So what I did is, iNaturalist doesn't allow you to pull videos. So what I did is I extracted the sound, and this is a sound that we have here, right? I extracted the sound in an MP3, and I do believe it's an eagle, right? So what I'm going to do is, and actually here, the choice of the first picture, it might be better, although it has no location, because of course it's an extraction of the sound there. The choice of the first picture, pretty tough. I'm hesitating between the sound of the first picture rather than having the nest, just to have a quicker identification. Although because I have no location here, I'm going to simply, so let's go, I'm going to use, I don't know, maybe this one. That you have this one as a second, and then all the rest just to see if someone can say something about this nest, right? So my sound is in, so picture or sound, right? I could have gone simply with the sound, but I wanted to have a little bit more structure in this observation, right? I thought that the nest is important. Someone who knows more about, eagles, etc., might see something that I'm not seeing. So sometimes people said, do you really need to put that many pictures? And I said, there's so much that I know. I don't know much, actually. Nobody knows much, but someone else can find something, right, in that. So here, what do we have? We have a heron. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to go with, they're actually the same one. You can see that by the timestamp. Then here, so this is a great blue heron. Oh, I'm going to put my eagle there. What do you mean tricolored? I think it's a great blue heron, so I do not believe what this guy is saying. So this guy, right? Here, I'm actually not too sure of what it is. This is either, so look what I'm doing. We're going to see what iNaturalist is going to say for the three. They say it's a Florida red-bellied cooter, and I'm hesitating actually between a cooter or a slider. What about the second one? There is a little bit more marking that you can see through the water. By the way, I didn't have really the best lens there. That was with my camera. A polarizer helps a lot when you work with water in order to really remove the reflection on the sun on the water, right? And then, so see, different one. So they say it's a cooter, right? And then this one, oh, the slider is coming second. So I have a tendency to think it's a cooter, right? So I'm going to pick this one because there is more definition in it. Some people are talking. It looks like some people are in the chat. I'm just seeing something popping on my screen. So I'm going to go with this one, and I'm going to say that subfamily, yeah, it might actually be. I'm going to go with that. It's a cooter. So we're going to the genus level. I might be wrong, and someone is going to correct me, and it's totally fine. That's what I want, right? So another set here. So I go for the full set. I'm going to go for the full set, not dismissing any, because one of the beauty of iNaturalist is, by having this sequence again, you're also looking at interaction of the species within its habitat. And this is something that we're interested in at Earthwise Aware. I'm picking my first picture. I'm looking at my first picture. This is a yellow rumped warbler, right? This is clear from that. But actually, I'd like to have a little bit more. I'm going to pick this one as the second one because I have the yellow rump and I also have the eye ring there. So I'm going to go for my most, and we're going to look at the set. It's a beautiful little, I like this set. I wish that actually we could pick several at once and just pull and dump them in the first one. It has not worked for me. So this is a set. Some repeats, but it doesn't matter. Personally, more is better than not enough. You don't always need, right, to have tons of picture. One is perfectly fine, which is this case here. This is the best I have, perfectly fine. It's a green heron, right? Cute one. I was at a distance. I was not, I might have this, when he looks at you like that, by the way, this is borderline where I'm distracting him, right? In my opinion. So we left very quickly. So I'm talking about ethics here. Same thing here. This is a great egret. I'm going with a set here, boom. And then we have another anole. I do believe it's still, I like this little set just because it's a little snippet of nature there. Beautiful. Look at, I love this little picture there. So I'm going to go and add it in because, you know, nature is about humor as well. Oops, I'm not seeing it. See that? Boom. And sometimes what I do is, so I put the first one, so here it's leaving me, right? And then once I have the identification research grade, then I flip, you know, the first, and I have the first one that I like, which is just, you know, the little hand there showing, right? We have a crowned heron here. The best picture is this one, all right? Oh, I forgot to add the thing. Black crowned night heron. And then we have, okay, I'm just going to brown anole. We have an aninga, and this is the same one. I'm going to show you the picture as well there. It doesn't matter. This is very distinctive of an aninga here. Let me show you. I want to talk about duplication, so that you see it a little bit. Beautiful bird. Look at that. It really darts. It's a darter. It darts. And it has, you know, breeding, starting to be a breeding thing. This one is interesting, this set, for another reason, because it can, later on, we're going to do duplication. So this is a cute little snippet of nature there. So I'm going to actually, let me put that in this order. That's going to be my first one, second one, but it came in reverse order. Oops. So the first one was actually, it was there. I just saw that, right? And then it popped and looked at me, right? There we go. Interestingly, I do believe it's simply a red squirrel. An eastern gray squirrel. I don't know my squirrels in that area. I might be wrong, right? But I'm going to go for the gray squirrel, right? And later on, we're going to duplicate that, not for the squirrel. I might duplicate this one so that I show you the duplication feature, right? And looking at what he is on, which is a palmetto of some sort. I don't know palmettos very well. We don't have them here. So we have a red-bellied woodpecker here. So I'm going to pick my first one. This one is fine. Boom, 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 boom. And then we have a few more, a couple more, and it's done. Then we have the gray catbird here. I'm going to double check at the end. Come on, gray catbird. And then we have another aninga, beautiful one, by the way. And then we have this one, and actually, I don't know in that area if they're endangered or not. I'm going to pick this one as my first. I'm going to show you the set. I was in Mississippi a little bit later last year, right? This is a sandhill crane, and remind me to look at the record because in Mississippi, they are endangered, right? So their location would be obscured in the set. So, of course, I showed you and I talked, but that, I have that done roughly in 7 minutes when I'm not talking, right? So, meaning that in 7 minutes, and I'm going to look at really where everything is, just to make sure this is something that is important, actually, to look at, because once in a while, for some reason, metadata can get corrupted, right? And you might have an observation that is not actually where it was supposed to be, right? So you have to correct the location. So all the location is correct. That was the first day we were going to Sunnyvale, and I check, you know, timestamp, etc. We're good there, right? And then I'm going to upload. So something else that I want to mention, thing that you might want to do. So I'm not doing that for this set, but often what we do for us in our projects, only when you start having project out there, we have sets of field that we might, you know, use for some of our observation when we are in a survey context. So iNat has sets of fields out there. You can also create your field in order to give a little bit more texture to your data and to be reusable in terms of when you search through it later, right? Certainly in the science context. So it's pretty cool. When I do birding, often I do that, I record, you know, situational, contextual type of information. Project, I don't need to pull that in any project because the data is pulled automatically, right? But this is the one where things do not go automatically. That was one of our old projects, the eNature photo album. It became a photo album for, you know, people who wants to come and go and put something there. And that is probably, this is a very old project. That's not one of ours, but I know them because they've put some of our data in their project, you know, manually. So the tags, let's look at that. Often we use the tags. I'll show you that on something else actually a little bit further, because we do certification of vernal pools as well as part of our program, citizen science program. So we do documentation and certification of vernal pool. And so we use tags, we create tags, right? Where we mark exactly the pools where we have the observation, because these observations become biological evidence for certification later. Certification process is a process by which, you know, you can protect your pool, grant some kind of level of protection to that pool. Something else that I want to mention. So, Amy, should I look at what's in the chat, or you're keeping an eye on what's in the chat? Is Amy here?
Yep, I think between Isaiah and I, we're doing a good job at keeping up with the chat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I forgot to ask anything there. All right, because I see the thing popping. I'm like, I'm not answering anybody. So, something else. So sometimes you might want to do, okay. Yes. So here, what you might want to do is, let's say that you want to have a general description for this entire set, right? You could select them all, right? And then in the details, look what happens. You might want to say, I don't know, set of observations. See, everywhere the thing is populated, set of observation that was, I don't know, that was taken, that were set, that was taken. Sorry, I'm French, so I do plenty of mistakes with language. Kathy knows that. That was taken, you know, on our first day, blah, 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 blah. And so you see what happens there? Every single observation is populated by that, right? Now, so usually I do that in this order, which is, if I want to make a general comment for an entire set, I start with by select all, right? And then after that, if I have something to say specifically about that thing here, I'm going to add something there, right? Why do I do it this way? Is because if I was first saying, you know, something about that, blah, 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 right? And then selecting all to do my general comment, then look at happen to blah, 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 blah is, you know, dismissed, right? So, which makes sense. So always start with the general statement and then go back to each of their observation and make more statements if you want about this observation. I have nothing to say specifically about this set, so I'm going to leave it empty there. I mean, you can edit multiple species, meaning if you had several of the same species, right, you might want to group them that way. I'm not going to touch that because I already did all the work. Oh, there is one missing here. This is a bald eagle. And same thing with the time. If there was something wrong with the time, you can correct them all, right, or correct them individually, right? So same principle there. So here, see, I mean, look, of course, it doesn't know what it's looking at, right? So we're on the bald eagle with actually, I'll show you how to change that. So I'm thinking, that's why I'm pausing there. Yeah, I'm going to upload it this way, and then I'm going to change the order. That's what's going to happen. So here I'm going to say bald eagle, and I'm going to change that. All right. Change the first picture. All right, so I have almost everything. Nope, my gray cat bird is not there. Gray cat bird. Something else. Everything is in. So you see, from 59 observation at the end, I have 17 observation. It took a little longer because I'm talking through all of the things, but me in 7 minutes or something like that, because I timed myself earlier, this is roughly what it took me. Of course, I know the species, etc. So these species, so I'm okay. So I'm maybe faster, but you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can have the job done, which is much faster than having that, you know, on the phone one at a time for me, right? So I'm going to upload that, crossing my fingers that it's going to go through, and I will tell you why. Is because I started, this is a sandbox, that's what you call this kind of environment there. The sandbox has been open for the last 2 hours, so hopefully nothing got corrupted. So let's go and do that. Submit. Yeah, it's saving it. While it's doing that, we can go back to there. No, not that. There. And see observer's license. So, and geotagging option. Let me talk about that because I can talk about it. Actually, let me see that. I have little notes there to see if I have something here. No, I have nothing specific there. So, geotagging option. People have asked me, actually me first, I was in Africa a few years ago. I was in Zimbabwe. I was doing some conservation work with black rhinos. So anyway, I uploaded my black rhinos pictures, right? And then I went really to all of them. I forgot to do that, to make sure that the geotag was obscured, right? Okay, so let's look at that. Actually, I'm curious about the sandhill crane. Is it endangered or not? No, it's not. So if I was to obscure the location of the sandhill crane, which is not necessary there, I would go here. And I want to remember, okay, obscured or private. So usually I don't go for private, I go for obscured. Private is nobody can look at it. I go for obscured because the team, the project in which this thing is, can still look at the geotagging. So I would obscure it if it was an endangered species, right? It was just passing through, to avoid having issues such as poaching, for example, which was definitely the case for black rhinos. However, when I did that and I made a comment, some people from iNaturalist reassured me right away to say, Claire, you do not need to worry, or Akili, because I'm Akili on iNaturalist, because as soon as, you know, this is an endangered species, then the data is obscured, the geolocation is obscured by default, right? So, which is a nice little touch there. However, usually it goes for endangered species. The one that are near threatened, it's different. And I know that because last year, so I'm going to cancel that. I don't need to hide this one. Last year, there was a wood thrush in the fells, and the wood thrush is actually threatened in Massachusetts state, right? And I looked on iNat, and the geolocation was not hidden. If the wood thrush had been, you know, just a single individual not nesting, okay, fine, because the wood thrush can move around. But there, that was clearly the picture of a nest. And what I wanted to avoid, the fells is a heavily, you know, there is a heavy traffic, it's a heavy traffic area. I definitely wanted to avoid having, you know, people coming and disrupting this wood thrush, this pair, right, that was nesting at that time. And that was definitely true because the time we were around that nest and we were at kind of a reasonable distance, the female or the male, they were a pair, were erect, looking at us and not doing what they were supposed to do. So they were definitely disrupted by our passing by. So I didn't want to add to the stress. I don't know why this wood thrush shows this tree on the path there by having a location where, you know, people say, oh, there is a nest there. There is one that is nesting. Let's go and look for that. So I obscured manually. All right. So, but otherwise, endangered species are obscured automatically, and what you would see is instead of this dot, a very precise dot, you would see a square, and I forgot exactly what is the dimension of the square, so it's a large area where you cannot really pinpoint where it is, you just have a vague idea of where it is, right? So that's that. Okay, so let me close that because each time I keep going to that, I don't need that anymore. So there, that's the geotagging option. Observer's license is an important one as well, in my opinion. Is I forgot, so they changed their default, but by default, you're going to see that what we do, we have a CC license, right? The CC license is some right reserved, but we really definitely give the right to our pictures, our sound, and our records to move from this database of iNaturalist to a more scientific oriented, let's put it this way, database. If you have a strict copyright issue, it's not going to move there. The way that you can change your observer's license to really help, you know, the scientific community would be to go to your profile or account setting, account setting, I think. And there you would see here, all the licensing. So what we went for, what I went for is an attribution non-commercial. And it's explained very nicely. And there is 3 levels for the observation, for the photo, and for the sound. So there's 3 different types of licensing. So we go for that, for all of them in our group. And the reason is because we want to promote the use of our picture, our sound, and our observation by the scientific community. And here, if you read that, right, you can see the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. You know exactly which attribution are going to go to them and therefore, which won't, right? So there, the CCO, the CCBY attribution, and the attribution non-commercial CCBYNC, which is what I have, the records are going to generate, records as well in the GBIF, which is this larger, global database. So that's that. For, let me go back to my observation there, because I want to talk about duplication quickly. Geotagging, we talk about that. The trust by verify, this is something, I'm French, so this kind of expression, this was something new to me somehow. So this is about really when you do your identification, or where someone with a suggestion, or where someone is putting some identification in place there, it's good to verify rather than agreeing. Actually, I don't agree necessarily to someone else's identification of my records, in the sense of I either remain silent, or if I have the wrong identification, what I do is I withdraw my identification rather than agreeing. The reason for that is by agreeing, you have to be careful, because the rule of 2/3 in order to make it a research grade and then the data migrate, somehow if I didn't know in the first place, right, probably the likelihood that I know in the second place on the second try is very low. So I prefer to have the community validating my observation rather than me reinforcing, the suggestion of someone else, right? I talked about accuracy as well. Oops. Boom. This is a nice quote. So that is covered. And let me, before talking of Maverick identification, we talked about annotation. You saw that, the use of field and tags, etc. And then the rest is something else there. So I just want to duplicate. Remember, I was saying that I want to duplicate one of the data there, this one. What I want to do there is not necessarily to duplicate this specific picture, but I'm going to go back in, and because sometimes what you have is you have a picture with plenty of species. It's only when you go birding for shorebirds. You might have, I have one like that where I have a white ibis, a roseate spoonbill, a wood stork, etc., etc. And sometimes what I don't want to do is necessarily crop solely. So I might have a set, right, and crop solely on the wood stork, because the interaction. This is one piece of data, by the way, which is lacking in terms of data gaps in the biodiversity world. Interaction within species is one of the data that is lacking. So I also like to have a picture that shows interaction with other species. And I also use field, here to explain, where is the field? See, I might use something saying, okay, let's say that I have 2 bees in the same picture, and I mentioned this interaction. Oh, it's always like that. Someone tries to call you when. And I forgot to, okay, here we are. So I note the interaction there. So here, what I'm going to do, it's not an interaction, but I'm going to go and duplicate this record to go with the palmetto as well, right? So I want to show you that. So I have 2 species in one, and I decide to go for the second one. So I duplicate it, right? Usually, actually, I do that in another tab. And what I'm going to be interested in is not the squirrels. I'm going to remove these squirrels there, right? And just have kind of a focus on the palmetto, right? And here, I don't know if it's going to say anything. No, it doesn't. But it's, is there 1T or 2T on palmetto? Palmetto. Oh, look at what I'm going to do. It's not a cabbage palmetto. I don't think so. But I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the taxonomy here, right? Where is the taxonomy? Here. To say, okay, it might be, actually, I'm going to go with palms. So I'm going to go at the family level, because I don't know necessarily if it's a sabal genus there. So palms. And often I'm struggling with the language, so that's why I'm going there. It's because I want to see how it's written. So I'm going to go, oops, move that here, and go with palms. And there we go, right? So I duplicate it, boom, and we'll save that. Boom. So that's a duplication there. What else? And that's how you see it. And often what I do, because I'm that way, I often like to add a little comment to say, oh, by the way, this is same in the record of and blind. I have the squirrel there. So I really add information when I can to the observation that I have. So, and you see that it has been pulled automatically in 2 of our projects, the biodiversity project, which is the umbrella project, and that is a specific project of some of our people there. All right, so maverick identification is, I'm not going to go into the details, but the maverick identification, they have a way of identifying when there is, you know, one or a subset. There is a kind of almost a consensus that one is really out, right? So this is a maverick identification. They have actually a nice explanation of that, which I like a lot. Let's go for that. Oh, okay, do that. They have a post. They have a nice community where they explain, you know, into the details what is a maverick, identification. But essentially, there is a consensus, you know, that happened along a taxonomy branch or a set of taxonomy branch, and someone comes completely off there, right? So that's essentially that. So I don't necessarily need to go to a place, and we're doing a speed edition there, or checklist or the different project, unless people want, but I might want to do to go into these details to other, you know, another session if people wanted to do that. But essentially, just to go back to, let's go there. I'm going to give you a brief highlight there. This is an umbrella project. This is a project that is made of other projects, of collection project here. So we created that in order to gather all of our information in order to somehow count the number of observations that we've done in the past 3 years, right? So, and because we, I don't like the word control, but we have a restricted member group just because we want to have a good quality information, good quality observation, and we're trying to increase the research grade or simply the quality of the data, right? You should not get too hooked on the research grade because sometimes some species are really hard to identify. You know, fungi, etc., are really hard to reach really a research grade. So this big one here is an umbrella project. By the way, it's pretty cool to see you know, the different tabs that they have and visualization that they have. Remember that for iNaturalist, it's about species occurrence, not necessarily about species, what is not there. It's about what you see, right? So that's really occurrences. It's not about abundance of species, right? They're starting to do very cool work actually by mining the pictures and to be able to identify different kind of phenology. So phenology is the different phases in a plant, for example, or even in an animal, you know, when they are nesting, etc., and you know, gather this kind of data and pull it in a way. That's my sister is not reaching me, that's why. Pull it in a way that is really providing, you know, quality information to other type of project out there, such as the National Phenology Network, which is really focused on phenology, which is the study of seasonal cycle on fauna and flora. All right, so you have the people who identify. This person has done a lot, is known in the area. Wonderful help. We're learning so much with them. And this is a set of observers. So once again, we restrict on our observer just because we want to really increase the quality of our data. The stat is pretty cool there, right? So they have very nice out-of-the-box type of visualization, and we have some of our favorite ones, I think, that we have seen. The collection project follow the same thing, right? So if I go back there, we have collection project per location for us, or per, you know, survey, depending. So some of our main collection projects are on the fells, where we do regular surveys, fresh pond habitat, etc. But we also have some that are more specific, such as BioBlitz, such as the one that will happen soon with the City Nature Challenge, where we want to gather, pool the data, not of everybody necessarily, because we're going to see that through the City Nature Challenge, the Boston area, but of the people who work with us, our citizen scientists, our followers, etc. So it's a nice way to aggregate the data, visualize the data, right? So that's the collection, and they are kind of easy, very easy to set up. And then you're going to see that, by the way, you can define different type of areas. So if you were to zoom in, let me go back to the fells, or actually, let me go back to what we have for the City Nature Challenge. Here, 2020, you can create nice place, nice map there, where, okay, I have there the larger the one, but actually the place that we're going to really follow is this one. We're going to, at some point, to pull the data to see what are we observing in these places, because these places are our study places for us, right? So that's that. I'm not going to talk about that necessarily today because I want to have a little bit of time for questions and things like that. If you want to know more, tell me, tell Amy, tell Colleen, and we'll have, you know, other kind of webinar that way. I hope people are enjoying that because I see black screen all over the place. Questions?
Claire, it seems like from the chat that everybody got a lot out of this and they really enjoyed it. Maybe we have a few minutes for questions if anybody has a specific question.
I'm going to put on screen something that is cool, by the way, because I think it's a fantastic quote. So it's a call for all of you right, to come and join the world. Yeah, I'm listening.
So if anyone does have a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat box or to unmute yourself and speak up.
You can.
Oh, this is Lisa. I have one more question. So after people are putting their information in for the nature challenge, what happens with it?
So, so the challenge is a celebration. So what you see here. All right, let me go back. Oh, let me move that. I have this little bar from Zoom that each time comes and pops in the way. That bothers me. Here we are. All right, so what you will see, so you see here, there's a, how do you call that? A countdown is what's called. So it's starting in 6 days. As soon as it's, you know, people start to upload, right, their observation, then this map is going to be populated and observations are going to start to appear. We're going to see the observation, right? They are going to appear. Let me show you actually another, let me do that. Let me open another one. Let me open the one from last year so that you see the result, right? Here we are, the one from last year for EwA, and of course the Boston area has, you know, a large project. So let's look. This is, oh, here it is. So things are going to be populated, the data is going to be populated, and then you're going to have, you know, the final number of observations. So a little team of 78 observers over a different location collected something like this number of observation over 365 distinct species, right? And here, so you have this kind of count, I don't know how you call that. How do you call that? But you see what I mean? So the people who made the most observation, the people who had the most species, you know, and they are ranked. So you see them, and actually you can see more. We reached, I wanted to have more research grade. It's tough because when you have, so this is a crowd of people that is new to it. So, and some species are cryptic, which is totally fine. We were reaching for 50. We didn't really quite get there. Nobody did really. But you have, you know, this little stat coming up, right, in terms of what has been validated as research grade. Once again, don't get hooked to the research grade. If something doesn't reach a research grade, there are plenty of other reasons as well, right? It's not off the radar, or the species is a very hard species. There are some, for example, some species of leafhoppers. Really, the distinction is essentially in the hue of the blue and the red. So this is pretty tough, right? So, and actually there are ways somehow, although I don't encourage that, to say, okay, this is the best that we can do, and therefore it can reach a research grade. Unless the person is an expert, I don't encourage people to say, okay, that's the best we can do. I prefer to leave that to the experts so that, you know, you have really quality data there. So it will be pulled automatically. You have nothing else to do, Lisa, just upload them, and they're going to populate, you know, our project, the Boston project, the international project is going to be pulled automatically in all these projects. Did I answer? Something else?
Claire, there's another question. Are you going to make the slides available on Earthwise Aware's website?
Yes, and actually I'm going to share that with you, you know, at Brandeis and EwA as well.
Great. We'll make them available on Zoo New England City Nature Challenge website, which is Zoo New England is hosting the Boston area City Nature Challenge website for us.
And on this slide deck, you're going to see as well, okay, this is our model. Then, so that's just, I'm going to brag a little bit because I was super happy, I have to say. So I'm not really a groupie type at all. But last year, that was, this is EwA Wilson. So he's really a dear, person, a wonderful person. He's the father of the modern biodiversity. I'm going to say that. He revamped the term, which pre-existed, and really gave it a complete whole dimension. And that was last year for his 90th birthday, and we were invited as iNaturalist to help, with the BioBlitz that was done in his honor. So not really like that, but I was super proud. I was super proud to be in his vicinity there. Wonderful man. And he's a man, by the way, who encouraged really the study of nature through natural history, right? So ecosystem is very important. So we encourage that. So it's not, so it's just us, we're calling you, but you can always reach me as this email as well. So that's what I wanted to mention, if you have other questions that way. Something else? Good, Kathy, are you okay? Are you happy with it? Okay, good. That's all that I have, so for you. And we are at 1:24, 6 minutes before the end.